everyone. Thank you for inviting me to do this webinar today. I'm very pleased to be here. I will be stepping through a slightly different version of our corporate deck than the one that's on our website, just in terms of making sure you're getting the latest information. But firstly, a quick introduction to myself. As Nima mentioned, I'm the CEO and I'm a director of TDG Gold. I've been involved since before it was actually listed in December 2020. I'm also an owner. And I've paid real money for every share alongside of my colleagues. TDG woke up on January the 17th this year, and our world had changed. We are ready for those changes. There's been a massive paradigm shift following a major new discovery right on our boundary. My background is as a natural scientist, graduated from Cambridge University, got into mining and metals around 2006-07, and I fully embedded in 2011-12. And I was very lucky in 2013 that I ended up working with what became the team that relaunched Skeena Resources. I was involved with Skeena through multiple iterations, leading to the strategy that's worked for Skeena, which is a brownfield strategy based on the theory that the best place to find a mine is, within the shadow of the head frame of an existing mine, or as I like to say, very simply, the best place to find a mine is a mine that wasn't fully mined. Fast forward a couple of years from that Skeena experience, I was able to bring that strategy alongside a colleague into TDG. We've been enacting that strategy ever since. I'll be explaining what we managed to achieve in the run up to what happened on January the 17th this year. Like Nima said, if there are any questions or if anybody wants to ask me anything, please feel free to do so in the Q&A session. So I'm now going to get into our corporate deck, so bear with me. I'll be sharing my screen. I hope everyone can see that. And as Nima mentioned, TDG Gold is strategically placed in the Toodoggone district of north central British Columbia. We woke up on January the 17th, the world had changed. We now find ourselves as the only independent operator within the Toodoggone district on the back of a major discovery. And we're poised now for copper, gold, and silver discovery and growth that will hopefully come with it. I will be making forward-looking statements. I do encourage people who are looking at the rerun of this, the replay of this webinar, to pause and read those, please. A quick corporate snapshot. I'll get through the corporate stuff quickly and then into the more sexy stuff. The share structure, just over 178 million shares issued and outstanding, 204.5 million shares on a fully diluted basis. All our options and warrants are in the money. None of the warrants have accelerators on them. We would expect those to get exercised over the next 2 to 3 years, assuming obviously continued performance. In the next year or so, we would expect it to bring in maybe another $1 to $2 million through exercises. Our current cash position, including some receivables in the form of government rebates, is around 15 million Canadian dollars. Our market cap is around 104 million. Tends to vary between about 90 and 105 million. Our corporate burn is a modest 75,000 Canadian a month. No intention to change that drastically. All the dollars that we've been raising, and we're now well funded for our next phase of exploration, that's all going into the ground with an initial budget of $10 million for exploration that's due to kick off any day. And then just in terms of ownership, Skeena Gold and Silver owns just under 13% of TDG. They came in February. They were the lead order in our financing on the back of the announcement of that major discovery on our boundary. We're very lucky to have Skeena involved. They bring them creativity, agility, technical acumen, and have really put British Columbia at the forefront of exploration through to development. And so we're really lucky to be working with them, and Skeena is getting more and more involved on a day-to-day basis. And then we have natural resource funds that own around 23.5%. That's precious metal funds. I think the ownership's a bit higher than that. But those are the funds that we can absolutely say are still involved. We saw a high volume, high liquidity event in the aftermath of that major discovery and announcement in January of this year. And so we believe some funds that may have been more, net asset value per share focused may have cycled out, taking the liquidity event opportunity, but they've been replaced by some other institutions, and we're a discovery-focused company, so that's obviously a little bit different. But we're excited to have that kind of level of institutional involvement. And then management insiders, including myself, own just under 13%. Michael Kosuan, who some of you may be familiar with from his work with Sprott and Rick Rule for a number of years. Michael owns just over 10%. And then the rest is distributed amongst private family offices, some retail investors, alongside some ultra high net worth individuals. And our focus is value creation through discovery. Hopefully, many of the participants in this webinar today are familiar with what's called the Lassonde curve. It's surprisingly accurate over a number of case studies and examples in terms of how you create value and how that different investors change as the risk profile of an exploration company transmogrifies through its life through discovery, feasibility development into actual production. And just our version of it goes back to 2022. We rediscovered the Shasta gold-silver deposit in 2022. I want people to keep their eye on this concept phase of 4 to 5 years. We put just over 1 million ounces gold and silver on the books. And then in January this year, there was the Aurora discovery by Freeport and the Hunter Dickinson group based out of Vancouver here, right on our boundary. It's a gold-rich copper porphyry discovery. It's the most important discovery in our district in the last 30 years. I'll get into more detail about it in a minute, but it happened effectively through their exploration drilling work last season, so in 2024, right on that concept cusp of 4 to 5 years. And for us, that is a proof of concept that there are gold-rich copper porphyries within our district. We've speculated about it for a number of years. We're grateful that Freeport and Hunter Dickinson were able to undertake that work. And what it means as of now, moving forward, we are in full-on discovery mode, and that discovery phase typically lasts 1 to 2 years and represents some of the best risk reward in terms of value creation that exploration companies such as ourselves can offer. So if there are 5 key takeaways that I'd like people from this webinar to go away with, the first one is the vision, the Aurora discovery, and our related project, which is called Greater Shasta Newberry, and also our Trident target, are likely part of a much bigger system. These things do not occur in isolation. They do occur in clusters. We've spoken about it for a number of years. We were only ever funded to focus on the gold and silver. That's changed now. And so we're lucky and grateful for the opportunity this year to advance towards that initial exploration to try and show what of that bigger system may be hosted on our side of the mineral claim boundary. We already had world-class expertise on hand. We've had it through a technical advisory group for a number of years. Bigger potential means bigger programs, and that Skeena funding that we achieved in February this year takes us in the right direction towards it. The opportunity then, the backdrop for it is also framed by what is a renaissance in exploration in British Columbia with an emphasis on critical minerals. British Columbia, for a number of years, majors were exiting. That actually created an opportunity where entrepreneurs such as myself were able to step in and acquire projects, certainly brownfield projects, that we probably wouldn't have otherwise been able to. Fast forward, and we were focused on ourselves on precious metals, gold and silver, but the Toodoggone district has an endowment of metals with small-scale mining as the backdrop. And has really been underexplored in terms of that critical mineral potential. And so we're a relatively new district and relatively underexplored, although with that backdrop of gold and silver. And the Toodoggone really has it all. So we expect now the Toodoggone to be one of the key areas in British Columbia that receives exploration dollars, not just from ourselves, but from other companies around us. And we expect that whole BC critical mineral renaissance to be epitomized by the Toodoggone and to really accelerate through 2025 and 2026. It's an extremely exciting time to be right in the middle of it. And we also believe we offer asymmetry of risk reward. Why? We have an existing resource, just over 1.1 million ounces of gold and silver, open pittable. There's a lot of very attractive features to that. We don't talk about it too much now, but it's in our corporate deck if you want to go and look at it. It has existing infrastructure. It has an existing Mines Act permit that's rare in British Columbia. And the way we like to explain it is we believe that provides downside protection because we not only believe it's strongly economic, and we were working in the background to try and demonstrate that. We still got that potential in our back pocket, but we've also always said, those who have followed our story, that we believed there was more gold and silver in the immediate vicinity. We haven't changed our minds regarding any of that, and at some point we'd like to get back on that track. But that gives downside protection. And then the upside that we're offering now really is all about discovery on that perfect part of the Lassonde curve. And we have multiple targets, near-term catalysts. It all begins this month. In fact, actually, we were scheduled to send our first team up to our fully winterized camp last week. It got delayed by a week, so hopefully they're leaving on Thursday this week. And if it's not this Thursday, it'll be within a few days of that, I'm sure, with the camp expected to open properly for exploration to begin in early to mid-June. And I'll be explaining what the first stages of work are going to be, and we're well funded to undertake that work. I mentioned the world expertise we've got on tap. We've got an extremely experienced board, management team, and leadership teams and advisors. I'm going to emphasize these individuals in the middle, including Dr. Adrian King, the former head of global exploration for Teck, Brad Mercer, the former COO of Capstone, and Fred Graybeal, who's made his career hunting for porphyry-style mineralization for ASARCO. These three individuals, alongside Chris Dale, have been advising us for a number of years now, and led in 2023 to an extremely important program that we undertook, that framed the opportunity that we now see as the lowest hanging fruit to make porphyry, gold-rich copper porphyry discoveries on our own property. And then our most recent addition, Jeff Kaiber. I would encourage people to go and look up Jeff. He's widely renowned as being as providing an exploration for all the major discoveries, certainly of porphyry-style mineralization in the Golden Triangle in British Columbia. He's never worked in the Toodoggone. We're lucky that Jeff joined us a few months ago and has been undertaking desktop work, and will be one of the first individuals hitting the ground running in the field as of June, undertaking some of the work and research that he's done within the Golden Triangle. He'll be emulating it in the Toodoggone for the first time. So an extremely experienced team, ready and capable and hitting the ground running. And then always working with First Nations in partnership. We run a process that involves bids being received from the First Nation groups within whose traditional territories we're privileged to explore. We try to offer as many of those business opportunities to the local businesses and local communities. We've enjoyed a strong working relationship with them since our inception, and we have no plans to change it. And I know people have heard me say this, but this is the one slide in our slide deck that never changes. It's a consistent approach. It's been given to us by an extremely accomplished individual that's on our management team, Christy Smith. She's got an MBA. She's a published author on working in partnership with local communities and First Nations, and she herself is from First Nation heritage. And so where are we operating? North Central British Columbia. Why? There's a geological feature known as the Golden Horseshoe that surrounds the Bowser Basin, that's framed by the coastal mountain range and the northern end of the Rockies. And a lot of people on this webinar will be probably familiar with the exploration and production that's underway in what's known as the Golden Triangle within that Golden Horseshoe, including Newmont's Red Chris operating mine and Skeener's Eskay Creek mine that's about to go back into production. Brucejack there, which is another Newmont mine. What people probably are less familiar with is the eastern limb of that Golden Horseshoe called the Toodoggone. Why? It's had a fraction of the exploration, in no small part because actually it had a history of small-scale, high-grade gold and silver production, meaning that there was no emphasis on larger-scale exploration, with one exception, the Kemess mine that's owned by Centerra and was operating for copper and gold through to 2011. And there's $1 billion of infrastructure sat there at the moment on care and maintenance, waiting for ore to be to go back through it. If you come up from Kemess, there are 5 former producing mines in the northwest part of that district, the Toodoggone, and we control 3 of them. If I zoom in to that eastern limb and just provide you a little bit more color, we estimate that around $3.5 billion Canadian dollars of modern exploration has been invested into the Golden Triangle. And by comparison, around 10% of that, $350 million of modern exploration has gone into the Toodoggone. Ourselves, we're responsible for about 30 to 35 million of that. Here's where we're located, right in the middle, and we're framed on either side to, certainly to the southeast by Freeport in their joint venture with Hunter Dickinson. Freeport now owns somewhere between 60 and 70% of the project, and that includes the major discovery that happened on January 17th this year, called the Aurora discovery, right on our boundary with our Shasta mineral deposit, a former producing gold-silver mine. And then to the northwest of us is Thesis Gold with just over 4 million ounces going towards PFS. And they are now have a strategic investment from Centerra. And Centerra there to the south still can own and control the Kemess, former operating mine, as I mentioned, with $1 billion of infrastructure. And so, interestingly, $350 million spent of modern exploration. This year, we estimate that throughout this corridor, about $100 million will be spent on exploration this year. So a step up from what's happened historically. And we're looking towards not just ourselves to help continue that battle rhythm of modern exploration, but our neighbors as well, and hopefully more discoveries to come, to be published throughout the summer and into the fall. So an extremely exciting time to be there. We published this a couple of days ago. This is a cross-section through that Aurora discovery. You're looking from east, well, it's east to west, so effectively you're looking to the north. Why is it so special? Its continuity, it's of mineralization, its shallowness, and these are the results of grams per ton gold, silver, and copper, but it's the thickness as well. So the shallowness and the thickness, the Skeener team have modeled it for us. We're not aware of anything that's like this, certainly within our district. It's the most major discovery in our district in the last 30, 40 years since the Kemess discovery, certainly through the copper gold lens. The question that we need to answer, and the market is answering, is what happens on our side of the boundary? Here's the mineral claim boundary. And we're becoming extremely confident through the reprocessing of the geophysics that the mineralization will extend onto our side of the boundary, where we continue to own 100% of our mineral claims and tenure. What we're not able to answer right now is how far and how much. And that's the purpose of this next stage of exploration. But there are a couple of things that are really exciting that we have noted, thanks to the Skeener team for their support and expertise, that there's a geophysical horizon that we've seen from one of the airborne studies that's been reprocessed. This is a Z10 study, so a resistivity study. And the Skeena team have noticed that there is a strong correlation between a certain resistivity horizon and the bottom of the Aurora mineralization that continues unbroken onto our side of the boundary. And in our district, you've always got to be worried about geological controls, faults, etc., that have been undocumented and may impact. And from what we're seeing from that geophysics, that geophysical horizon is unbroken. Clearly, what we don't know is what it'll look like when we get up there and do other geophysical studies. And again, that'll be one of the first things that we'll hit the ground running and do this summer. But there's been nothing discovered like this certainly in our district, and I'm unaware of other porphyries that show this kind of gold-rich copper gold porphyry signature. And just in terms of its mineability and how it might impact that, as you can see, going shallow, gently plunging to our side, it's not rocket science to suspect as well that if in a scenario, if Freeport wanted to put this into production, that a 45-degree pit wall, in order to encompass all of their known mineralization, would extend to our side of the boundary. But if they took it from their side of the boundary, they would obviously then be limiting some of the production that would be possible. Another interesting feature is they stopped the drill hole that was closest to our boundary. They stopped it short. We believe they were getting into the good stuff. And for whatever reason, we're not able to continue that hole. We hope that they'll be back up there this season, continuing to explore and put holes into this incredibly exciting discovery in parallel with ourselves. And we'll be starting right at the boundary, sticking almost a vertical hole within as close as we can to the boundary, expected to start drilling in July this year. So super exciting time. And if I zoom out and look at it from the air, picture paints 1,000 words. There's the Aurora discovery. I know it looks small on here. It is a relatively small footprint, but obviously it's the angle that you're looking at here that somewhat distorts it. The mineralized body that they've already identified extends somewhere around 400 to 500 meters east-west and another 400 meters or so north-south. So you're not seeing the full extent of it. But what's really important is here's our existing resource located around 1 kilometer away from that Aurora discovery. And the way we like to explain it is Freeport and Hunter Dickinson used a combination of techniques in order to target and make the Aurora discovery. One of the key techniques was an IP study, induced polarization. We've never undertaken it on our side of the boundary. Why? Because it's great for looking for disseminated sulfides. We weren't looking for those when we were targeting the gold and silver. We were working essentially off historical drill results and upgrading them. So we really didn't need to undertake that study. Now we absolutely need to. But the information that's already been provided, and I've got some pretty pink blobs to show you on some maps coming up. But essentially, it was almost like a big section of jigsaw puzzle coming into place right on our boundary. And it didn't just obviously excite the market and re-rate the Hunter Dickinson company that worked with Freeport to make the discovery. It re-rated us, but it also explained some features up there that we've long kind of wondered about. They've been on our radar, and that we were never funded to really look into. And I'll highlight a few of those here. The first is what looks to be some browny red showings at surface just to the north there. We've always speculated what that could relate to. Now we think it's a natural extension of whatever's going on at Aurora, potentially hitting some controls, geological controls, and upwelling there at that point. And then perhaps even more importantly, some outcropping at what we call Shasta South. We've always speculated what that might relate to. An interpretation is that Aurora was into a really important junction between older rocks and newer rocks. And if that's the case, we might well be seeing the same thing at Shasta South between the older rocks here and the younger rocks. And what that leads us to speculate is that Either Aurora continues over to our side of the boundary, that Aurora style mineralization, potentially underneath the younger rocks that you're seeing here, but also that there's the opportunity that it continues at our Newbury target, deeper underneath our Shasta existing gold silver resource, and potentially shallow down at Shasta South. Now we know there's more gold and silver in between. Why? Because of the historical drilling that intercepted it. It wasn't of the grade that they were looking for small-scale historical mining. It was certainly interesting to us to follow up from a modern open pit gold and silver perspective. And we were hoping to block and tackle our way to 2 to 3 million ounces heading east. Now we're funded to already skip to the boundary and take the deeper swings. And an interpretation is that this is almost like a baseball diamond. There's first base at the boundary, second base up at Newbury, third base is what's going on underneath Shasta Deep, and home plate, fourth base, is at Shasta South. And if by some miracle they join up and we see that same mineralization throughout, it becomes more about the whole baseball field than it does about the what's going on at the individual bases. And then just to emphasize the asymmetry of risk reward here, that existing gold and silver, an interpretation is that the gold and silver that is hosted in the younger volcanic rocks sits over the top of what's going on underneath. And again, as we're drilling deeper to go through in various places and test what's going on underneath, we will be going through some of the shallow stuff. Now, obviously, you target it maybe differently for the gold and silver, but we're certainly hoping to learn about the gold and silver in the shallower rocks there as we drill deeper to test what's going on underneath. So it's an extremely exciting time, and we've got enough information, enough pieces of the jigsaw coming together that we think we know what we want to focus on next, and we're well funded to undertake that work. So I won't get too technical. I'll just emphasize that the Aurora discovery, even though it's shallow on their side of the boundary, seems to be at a major lithological contact. The geological model for the district is well understood. Our gold and silver is hosted in the top 225 meters. We've never drilled beneath that because we were never funded to do it. And if we're correct, then at Shasta, underneath the gold and silver, we may have to drill down to 450 meters. But if you can see, that looks like there's a gentle slope up towards the east, that's towards the boundary, and about 1 kilometer away at that boundary, we'd expect to be drilling maybe as shallow as 200 meters to intercept the Aurora style mineralization, assuming it's there. So there's a lot to play for here. And one of the features of the Aurora discovery is the shallowness of it. And even though it looks like it potentially goes deeper underneath our Shasta gold and silver, it's still shallow by porphyry standards, certainly within British Columbia. So this is truly game-changing, and with a nice gold and silver kicker potentially sitting over the top over that entire area. Why are we so confident about the gold and silver extending? Not just our work, but historical work that looked at gold in soil. There's a large gold in soil anomaly that extends not just over ourselves, but all the way over the Aurora discovery and up at our Newbury target, just located to the northwest there. And another extremely interesting feature, we've gone back and looked at what we know about copper now that the Aurora discovery has happened. And you can see the copper signature on their side of the boundary. What I'm going to say is it doesn't leap off the page. These are not numbers that you would normally focus on for copper gold porphyry potential, except until you understand the geology and until someone stuck a hole in and hit that 130 meter plus of continuity. And the explanation for why you see such an extensive copper in soil signature that isn't, leaping off the page, but delivered such incredible results is because it had to work very hard to get up through those younger layers to get to the surface. So in actual fact, it's a screaming anomaly, but only once the Aurora discovery proof of concept had happened. So we feel extremely fortunate that that happened on our boundary. And we're now starting to notice other features as well. We actually have a molybdenum copper sulfide in soil anomaly that is located down to the south, around where that outcropping was that I showed you on that aerial image. So there's a lot of new features to follow up on that are going to help us really focus in on the targets. We're going to be drilling on the boundary. We already know where we're going to do that. The question then is where we go from there. And that's going to be a function of repeating the studies that Freeport and the Hunter Dickinson group did so well. And so this is their own IP study, Big Pink Blob. I put it to the participants in this webinar that 200 million years ago, the driving mineralization that drives this pink blob didn't know to stop at the boundary. So we do expect it to continue. The question we've got is how far? And right where we put that circle, that black circle there, or that black polygon there, is right where that upwelling was, that reddish brown potential upwelling of mineralization that I showed you on that aerial image. So we do expect the pink blob to continue. What we can't answer right now is how far. And just to reorientate you, first base, second base on the baseball diamond, third base, what's going on underneath Shasta, and fourth base down to the south. And why are we therefore confident that we are going to encounter more of that Aurora style mineralization? Well, typically, Freeport and Hunter Dickinson clip the maps like a lot of operators do to the boundary. But one bright spark spotted that in a filing that they'd made, there was a map with another form of resistivity study that they didn't clip the map. And so just to orientate you again, here's the boundary. And I think you can possibly see that underneath the logo of Hunter Dickinson, there is a pink blob there. And there's also a pink blob developing to the south, west there, which is where that outcropping is visible on our aerial image. And we know that they have other targets on their side of the boundary as well. So we expect a flurry of activity up here that's focused on centered around that Aurora discovery. We have our own ground magnetics. I promise this is almost the last pink blob image I'm going to be showing. This study only looks down around 200 meters, but I think you can convince yourself that you're seeing some interesting feature that's on our side of the boundary. We know that they used magnetic studies for their own targeting on the Aurora side. There's Shasta South, that home plate. There's Newbury. Why don't we see a big pink blob at Shasta? Well, this study doesn't look deep enough. We're expecting to hit, if the mineralization is there, at around 450 meters. And if you remember, I just said that this particular study only peers down around 200 meters below the surface. So what's the game plan? Well, it's to get up there and drill at the boundary, right? There's first base, second base, third base, fourth base. And if by some miracle we see continuity of mineralization, the numbers get enormous in terms of what there could potentially be there. And it becomes about the whole baseball field, not just the baseball diamond. And while we're drilling on the boundary, the geophysical studies will kick off, and they'll be stepping their way up what is essentially a 12-kilometer corridor of geophysical anomalies that are on echelon, left-stepping mag features. And if we're correct, I'll just map that out for you. There's the first baseball diamond. We may well have others. There could be the second baseball diamond, and this could be potentially a third. And Freeport themselves have just signed a deal with our neighbors to be able to explore on their land around here. And we hope that they repeat their performance at Aurora and end up doing something at this feature up here. And if we're correct, then it's not just about this first baseball field, Yankee Stadium. It's also about Fenway Park and Wrigley Field as well. So a lot to play for in a whole district that's been relatively underexplored, with a major proof of concept right on the boundary and enormous potential to deliver not just more gold and silver over the top, but also then this gold-rich copper porphyry that's a game changer. Work plan, straightforward. get up there, IP surveys, boundary drilling. Results should start to come in July from the geophysics, and then the drilling will begin. And if we put a rush on some of those early drill holes, we may be in possession of some of those results heading to August, September. And then just to continue stepping up to test those and qualify those other opportunities, those other baseball diamonds, and then test that critical lithological contact that may be sitting underneath Shasta and also at Newbury. Work commencing imminently and expected to last typically through to October as far as November. We're in a snow shadow here and we're fully winterized. And then just to remind you then, this is where the game is. 4 to 5 years to proof of concept. We're grateful that that's happened. And everything that we're doing this year is all about discovery. It's exactly where you want to be on the Lassonde curve. And I would just encourage everyone that's participating here to please pay close attention. We're still trading around the prices that Skeena gave us that money in February this year. And we're well funded for what is the sweet spot, discovery. And, hopefully 1 to 2 years of consistent, meaningful results coming out from all the work with an expert team at the helm that's been there, done this before, and is ready to take the swings that we know are necessary. So thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. And then with that, I'll hand back to the moderator here and any Q&A.
Thanks, Fletcher. Appreciate it. Well done. We have a number of questions coming in through the email, and I know some of this you've touched on in your presentation. Can you provide an update on the progress at the Shasta project?
Sure, absolutely. So we published an updated NI 43101 mineral resource estimate for Shasta in January this year. And what we were working on in the background was pushing it through scoping study with a view to potentially taking it to PEA at some point this year. Excuse me. We're not going to do that now. Why? Because we do expect to encounter mineralization through our drill program this year that's well funded. And some of that mineralization itself could lead us towards more gold and silver. Epithermal gold and silver, in which case then we'd want to update that resource as a function of that at some point. And so really we were planning that PEA, if we got there, as really just a way to emphasize to everyone that not all 1 million ounce gold silver deposits are equal. In our case, as I mentioned, it's in a permitted mine area. It's got existing infrastructure. It's continuous. I think there's more that we can still publish in due course at the right time on the metallurgy. It's low sulfidation. We don't believe it'll need cyanidation. All of these things are really important for anyone out there that understands the tick boxes towards development at some point in the future. But I think the real opportunity now for Shasta is to take a step back, focus on the bigger swings that we're going to take in the baseball diamond, learn what we can about the epithermal gold and silver, and then come back, with force and then really drive the epithermal forward at some point. I'd love it to be this year. We're not funded for that at the moment, but I do think that there's the potential that will happen at some point in 2026. So I think a way of looking at it is a little bit of a pause, but a really important one, where it may be a game changer for everything we know about where we're where that existing deposit is, and then get that thing back on track at some point. I would never rule out publishing a PEA, certainly if I felt it was about pouring value on top of value. So it's in our back pocket, and it's a great question, and I'm pleased someone asked it. The other thing that maybe someone may ask, but just in case they don't, our Metz mining lease, which is located 23 kilometers up the big mining road that services our entire district, has some of the shallowest, thickest, highest grade gold in the entire district. And again, when we get back to working on Shasta and that gold and silver, I'd love to be able to then get back up to Metz as well. It's a truly special opportunity up at Metz that could really change the whole way that development then progresses in the district.
Thanks, Fletcher. The question, another one actually just came in through email. What's your current cash position and runway?
Yeah, again, I touched on it briefly. It's in our slide deck. So I think we're around 15 million right now in cash and receivables. So probably about 14.5 million in cash. Now that cash, there's different types of it. The around 4 million hard dollars, which you can use on anything. And then the rest of it is what's called critical mineral flow through. And we did that through a charity flow through swap. And for those participants that may not be familiar, it's a great way to stretch dollars, taking advantage of the government mandated mechanism in Canada to encourage investment into exploration. And so what it means is effectively the subscribers or the participants in our private placement in February paid 50 cents a share, but we ourselves received 82.5 cents a share in dollars that we're only able to use on critical mineral exploration. And in our case, that's obviously a copper and copper gold focus. And so we're well funded for undertaking what I've described today, that geophysics and that drill program. What we're not funded for is to then obviously focus on gold and silver right now, because that at the moment, and don't get me started, is not characterized as critical mineral. But if you remember as well, when we're drilling some of those deeper holes, we expect to go through some of the gold and silver that's more shallow. And so we hope and expect to learn from that and prove our targeting that when we do get back to gold and silver, we're able to then be even more efficient. So everything we're going to be doing this season is focused on that critical mineral stuff. We've been paying deposits on drill companies, etc. That's why our cash has gone down a bit. But it's all about getting ready and gearing up now for the season that's about to start.
Great, thanks, Fletcher. I've got a question coming in from email here. It's funny, we just talked about the charity flow through. It's on the press release, as I don't think you talked about it, but obviously Skeena was the largest purchaser of that offering.
Yep.
Very strategic, clearly. They sold back, it seems, Sophia.
Yes.
And I don't think we touched on that. Like, just where is that? Maybe
Yep.
Tell everyone.
Yeah, sure. The best way is to flip back to the map real quick. So just give me 2 seconds, and I'll pull that.
What is the plan with Sophia, and does the you say you're well funded? Does that 2025 work plan include Sophia or not? Thank you.
Yeah, so we've had our eye on Sophia for a number of years. If anyone wants to go back through and look at the history of Sophia, you'll see that actually it was part of a company called QuestX, and QuestX was something I was involved with through to, I think it was around 2021 when we really cranked up the work with TDG. So we've had our eye on it for a while. It is the porphyry opportunities in the Tudagon are effectively located in northwesterly, southeast northwesterly trending corridors. Keep an eye on the fact that the compass here is slightly off. But there are not just one of these potential corridors. There are multiple. Oops, sorry, bad image. Right, there are multiple, and Sophia itself has one of these potential corridors running right through it, and not just north, southeast, northwest corridors, but cross faulting as well seems to be quite important. And the Alexandra porphyry target on Sophia sits within one of these intersections of a potential cross-cutting set of structures, along with one of those major southeast, northwest corridors. For us, what it does right now is complete our pipeline of porphyry targets. Will we be working on it this year? Yes. What we will be doing, well, it's about recompiling the information in light of that Aurora discovery. It's changed everything we know about copper gold porphyry exploration in this part of the district. Alexandra is no exception to that. Skeena did undertake some drilling. They have provided obviously all that information to us as part of our acquisition of it. And we are in dialogue with the Skeena team about what they would have done next with it had they been working on it this season. So it's been a brilliant opportunity to come closer to the Skeena team. And one of the things to mention about the Skeena team is that people might not realize, of course, they've knocked the ball out of the park with SK Creek, which is a VMS, gold, silver deposit. However, they were also working on porphyry exploration in their expanded land package and had made a discovery that they announced earlier this year at KSP. So they have a lot of experience and depth of knowledge here that we're looking to leverage. So I think you will see stuff happening this year at Alexandra. I've got to be honest, it's not a priority. Everything that we know about that main corridor that includes Aurora and Greater Shasta Newbury, that's the focus this year. Everything else we will be doing will be about qualifying the other projects that we've got, other targets we've got. We're not interested in joint venture dialogues. We made a big announcement, I think it was in January 2024, that we were looking for joint venture partners to assist us. That's not on the table right now, not until we've done this next well-funded stage of work. And Alexandra will see some activity this year, but it won't be a priority, and it certainly won't be a priority over the stuff that's going on potentially in that main area there.
Thanks, Fletcher. We had a question come in. What was your last financing and what were the terms?
Yep, thank you. It happened in February this year. We were very concerned after that major discovery that we were going to be, there would be opportunistic offers coming in, whether that be financings or whether that be, some kind of M&A. And so this Skeena investment was very welcome. We were able to achieve it very rapidly. And as you mentioned, Skeena was the lead participant. So we raised $15.5 million. It was composed of 4 million hard dollars at 50 pennies, no warrants, and 11.5 million that we received through a charity flow through swap. I mentioned the price on that was 82.5 pennies, but the participant of that was one participant, it was Skeena, and they participated on the back end of that charity flow through swap at 50 pennies. So it was a level playing field for everyone. All the shares were issued at 50 cents, including then the portion that we were able to stretch by an additional 62.5% to 82.5 pennies. So it was, 65% to 82.5 pennies. So it was a really good financing. There were, I think from memory, fewer than 10 participants, one on the charity flow through side, Skeena, and then the rest were on the hard dollar side, including my colleague and fellow director, Michael Kosowan, who participated, I think from memory, for about $1 million worth at 50 pennies. And we've been trading in that range between 42 up to 62 cents. And I think currently today, if I look at it, we're around 58, 59 cents. So there or thereabouts at the Skeena financing price. So still, I think, very attractively priced given the existing endowment of gold and silver and the exploration upside with the near-term catalyst through discovery that's about to kick off that we're well funded to undertake.
Thanks. I don't see any further questions coming in. Do you want to leave the audience with any last thoughts, Fletcher, before we
Yes,
conclude?
please, if I can. Yeah, look, thank you for everyone for participating today. Look, I've been in this sector now for 12 years, and there've been ups and downs. BC itself is emerging now to become a front runner in exploration. I did a webinar that is available on YouTube where I spoke at length about that. But I think really what's most important is for investors looking to get exposure into exploration, pay attention to the Lassonde curve, pay attention to the project locations and the teams. And in our case now, we've woken up as on January the 17th with a paradigm shift in a district that's really been underexplored in terms of the amount of dollars of modern exploration that's gone into British Columbia and the results that have been delivered. We've had a fraction of what's gone into other parts, so we've been a forgotten district. And we're lucky to be not just a first mover back in there in 2020, but we're also now woken up and we're the only independent operator. We've got Freeport to our southeast. We've got effectively Centerra, operating on our western boundary all the way up on that side of us. And there's infrastructure, Mines Act permit on our property with an existing resource. And now we're funded to undertake the most exciting exploration season of our short history. And it all begins in the next few weeks. And it all begins on our boundary with that major gold-rich copper discovery that's the most exciting discovery in the district in the last 40 years. I'll go out there and say it's of the top 3 discoveries, certainly in terms of copper-gold porphyry mineralization within northern British Columbia in the last 10 to 15 years. And it has the potential to become something truly special in a jurisdiction where there's a clear roadmap now to development, and that the British Columbian government has announced that it will be fast-tracking projects through to permitting. And with the Skeena team being invested in us and helping us, being of the most agile, of the most creative, of the most aggressive in terms of exploration, we're very, very well positioned to pull on all the levers that we've got and get those results coming through and try to continue the momentum that we've seen since January, keep building it and turn this opportunity into something truly special that I'm hoping for me is the opportunity of a career. So thank you for your time today. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you've got any other questions. We like to pride ourselves on being responsive to any investors that wish to ask us anything.